Captain America the Winter Soldier takes place 2 years after the events of the Avengers, and where Steve Rogers is still trying to adapt to the society that we have today. Meanwhile, he continues to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. as some conspiracies start to arise and a new villain arises as well, the Winter Soldier. And this movie is definitely going to be amazing if you're a fan of the Marvel Universe, because not only is it better than the original, which you should probably watch before watching this movie because it comes full circle, but also sets up the story and leads into not only Avengers 2, but every other movie that they have prepared, which Kevin Feige says is going to go up to 2028, and that's insane. And I would say that this movie does deliver a great superhero movie because not only mixes the genre of it being a superhero movie, but an espionage thriller and it being a conspiracy movie as well, but handles the story and the action well to keep the genre fresh. And even though I think everyone did a great job in the movie, there was one person who really stood out to me, and their name is actually in the title, and that's the Winter Soldier, because I thought that every scene that he was in, he owned, and that every action scene that he had seemed completely realistic, because not only did the actual actor watch a lot of film and he practiced months before actually coming into the movie, but you can really tell when he has those scenes, and every scene that he was in was completely BA. Not only because I think he looked like Leto from 30 Seconds to Mars, but he was honestly the best part of the movie. And while I thought overall that the movie was great, there are some parts that are not only very cheesy, but are also pretty much conveniences and didn't make a lot of sense. And you have to realize that as great as the movie is, you can't go all fanboy and think that it's completely perfect. There are going to be some parts that don't make sense, and while it may not be that big of a deal, the movie does have like a quadrillion billion dollar budget, and you would think that they have writers who would do a better job at these parts. Mainly the thing being that while even though it's an action movie, there's still a scene where they have the 3, 2, last minute thing, and they continue to do that, and it gets very cliched. The second one isn't that big, but it's just the fact that they completely void out all of the other superheroes who could have helped out, but they don't help out, and yet there are some little things and inferences that show you why they cannot be in the movie, but really overall it's because of the budgets that they can't get the other actors to be in it. That's really the case in it. But I would still argue that the smallest cameo would make sense, because I mean at the end of the Avengers they were pretty good buddies eating shawarma together, so it would make sense like, hey man, what's going on? But the third one is the one that was probably the dumbest part of the film. You can love the film, but this was pretty dumb, and it's this little device that they have that allows them to cut through things even though they're completely close. It can burn metal, but it doesn't burn your skin, and it allows you to get out of these situations that they don't really tell you how it's possible for them to leave a moving car or just go into the ground that's complete cement. But hey, it's a superhero movie and they need their conveniences to continue the movie going forward. But again, overall I thought it was a great movie, and those were just some little nitpicks that I saw that completely made no sense. But if you watch the movie, you're definitely going to enjoy it and have a good time, and one that you're probably going to want to watch again, because there are a lot of Easter eggs and little things in there that are really cool to see, which is what I want to talk about now in the obvious spoiler section. Starting off clearly with the after credits scenes, which the first one that we got was midway through, where you see Von Strucker, who is clearly going to show that this whole Hydra storyline is going to continue, but you see that they have the twins, which are Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and it's going to be interesting to see that they are making them Inhumans because they have their powers from magic and not being mutants, because they clearly cannot mention their father without getting sued by Fox. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those two characters. They already look a lot better than the versions that the X-Men have. However, there was also the other extra credit scene that they have right at the end of the film, where the Winter Soldier goes and he sees his real identity and he's trying to remember who he was. And I think that this is going to imply that he's not only going to be in the third film, but they're probably going to unite him and Captain America, which would be really cool to see Bucky and Captain America the way that they have it in the comics. Or maybe, who knows, since Captain America did die in the comics and the Winter Soldier or Bucky did take over for him, that could be a possibility. But some of the other really cool, interesting things that I wanted to mention was that some of the scenes that you see in this movie were actual ones that they were going to put in the Avengers, having to do with Captain America's past, but decided to take it out, put it in here instead. Another one was a lot of the mentions that they had when they were talking about targets. For one, they mentioned Stephen Strange, who's supposed to be Doctor Strange. They also have a sort of mention to Black Panther, which I think would be really cool. It was also interesting to see that they had an MMA fighter in the beginning of the film who, even though Captain America is supposed to be a super soldier, he still could not go up against an MMA fighter and just defeat him that fast, which was interesting. Another one was there was a scene with Paul Newman when he's talking to the Winter Soldier in his house, and he opens the refrigerator to show Paul Newman sauce that he has in there, which was cool because him, you know, they were in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. One of the other cooler ones was that when you see Samuel L. Jackson's grave, he's got Ezekiel 25:17 on it, which is his line from Pulp Fiction. That's awesome. It was also cool to see that Stern, who we first saw in Iron Man 2, comes full circle to see that even though he's made all of these appearances, he's actually supposed to be one of the bad guys who was working with Hydra the whole time. Agent 13, who's supposed to be, I guess, Peggy's niece, who was the one in the first love interest in the first movie, who's now completely old and CGI'd. But I'm guessing that she's either going to be the niece or the granddaughter of Peggy, and she's going to be Captain America's future's girlfriend, which is cool because she was awesome. Frank Grillo's character obviously doesn't die, which is going to be cool because maybe he'll finally be Crossbones in the next movie. It was also interesting to see that Lau from The Dark Knight and Whitmore from Lost, where both bad guys were actually good guys here in the committee that they had. Very interesting. There was also Zola, who we see is sort of a rendition of Ultron. Like, is he going to be an AI, or is that concept that he had back in the 40s going to be what they're going to build off the concept for Avengers Age of Ultron as well? It's going to be something interesting because that was clearly a hint to what that's going to be. There was also the one where they tell Rogers that he needs to write things down in a little journal in order to be able to catch up with the times, and it's cool to see that in Mexico and in South Korea, depending on where they showed the film, they had different iconic figures on that list, so that's cool. And the final tidbit that I thought was interesting was that the Avengers Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, is that going to be cancelled because they clearly destroyed S.H.I.E.L.D. here and there's nothing else to go with it? I mean, I guess they're rebuilding it, or maybe it's going to be a new sect, but they clearly show that S.H.I.E.L.D. is down from this movie, so I don't know how this TV show, which wasn't doing well, is going to be able to last. But those were just some of the Easter eggs and tidbits that I noticed. I'm curious to see what other ones you picked up that you think are more interesting, and overall what you thought about the movie. Let me know about this along with anything having to do with movies down below, and I'll see you guys next time.